My name is Aisha Bowe. I'm a former NASA rocket scientist, engineer, entrepreneur, and a Blue Origin astronaut.
The Aisha Bowe joins us right now, the founder and CEO of STEMBoard and LINGO.
She's a former rocket scientist from NASA turned entrepreneur, helping shape the next generation of scientists with an out-of-this-world creation.
I'm a community college student that went to an aerospace school, that founded a tech company, that ran it for 11 years, and then decided that I was going to go and raise venture capital so that I could be on this mission.
I wanted to lead an organization that could be an example.
Not only has she worked at NASA, she's also the CEO of STEMBoard,
one of the fastest growing companies in America.
We've been on the Inc. list twice, and we're not slowing down. I know what it is to run a company and run a team.
I am here to challenge the narrative.
Ladies, gentlemen, and those of you who know better, please welcome to the stage CEO Aisha Bowe.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to share with you a playbook. And it's a playbook for taking what people will tell you is impossible and turning it into what I call the improbable. Because I believe that the next frontier is not just space. It's in how we think, how we win, and how we learn. I can remember being that young, cute baby that you just saw. And back then, I really did not have any aspirations to go to space or to work for NASA. I was more or less just trying to figure out how to get by because I was incredibly shy. And when I really thought about dreaming, I really mostly thought about what I could not do as opposed to what I could. And the more that I talked to people around me, regardless of the background, regardless of where they came from, even if they had dreams, they would make sure that those dreams were not too big. They may say, oh, well, I can build the next billion-dollar startup, but rockets? Oh, no, maybe not rockets. And it really caused me to think, why is it that we build these dreams that are big enough, but still small in many ways? The reason why I want to bring this to you today is because where I started is a far cry from the video intro that you saw. And in fact, I brought the receipts. And so for those of you who are close enough, in the front row, you can really see how horrible this transcript is. For those of you in the back, you'll just have to lean in. I started my career thinking that I was going to end up working as a secretary or just a day laborer or something, because I really did not have any support, any inspiration, any guidance when it came down to space, science, engineering, or any of those sorts of things. And the more that I started to listen to the people around me, the more that I actually started to fail, because the people around me were reinforcing this. They were saying, oh, well, you haven't been good at that, therefore you cannot be good at this. And so for my high school career, I left. I didn't even apply to university, and I said, you know what, Aisha, I'm going to resign myself to what other people tell me is true about myself. And there's something there that gets into your soul, and it holds you back. And I want you to think about this today. Do you have limitations on your thoughts, on your mindset, on your dreams? Because I did. And it wasn't until I failed my first semester in community college that I started to examine why I thought the way that I did. And I said, Aisha, you have subscribed your whole life to internalizing what other people told you. you think you can't because they tell you that you cannot? What if, just for a little, you escaped? What if you created a world that was entirely of your own fantasy? What would be in that world? What would you do? And so I started with a very small list. And my list was that I wanted to go to university, and I wanted to do something that was amazing. Actually, not amazing, badass. And if I was going to go to university and if I was going to do something badass, I would do the hard thing, the thing that people would forever be impressed by for the rest of my life. And so I got this piece of paper, and it was the list of engineering majors. Now, mind you, I was in community college, and if you saw the grades in the beginning, they were terrible. So this at the time was certainly a stretch. And the first thing on the top of the list was aerospace. And I said, that's it, that's that badass thing. I'm going to do that. I'm going to go to the University of Michigan, I'm going to study aerospace, and if I can do those things, well, I don't believe I can do those things, but I'm going to try to do those things, and if I make it that far, then I'll reevaluate. In that process, what I learned was that in many ways, we're all like computers. And many of us are operating on programming that we cemented when we were very young. And if you treat yourself like a computer and you do what Mac does, you push upgrades. You do them often, you are deliberate, and you're constantly building a better operating system. For me, my foundational operating system became that first upgrade, which is, if I can go from community college to aerospace, what is it that I cannot do? I used to think that success was for someone who was not like me, for someone who was rich, for someone who came from a stable home, for someone who had guidance and who actually had mentorship, who was able to help them along the path of where they want to go. But what I found was that those things actually are not predictors of success. It's how you update your mindset, your operating system, and whether or not you can take control of whatever internal narrative is running right now in your mind. And so my thought was, okay, Aisha, if you can go from being an undergrad in aerospace to being at NASA, how does it change how you view the world? This picture was from the second upgrade. This picture was from me making it to NASA and realizing that the most important thing that I had to address was this concept of being realistic. I don't subscribe to that anymore. In this seat, I'm actually flying a 6th degree of freedom vertical motion simulator. And this was gifted to me after my first successful year as an engineer in the small spacecraft division at NASA. And I really started to shatter all of the thoughts that I previously had around what I was going to do and who I was going to be. And I said, Aisha, why is it that you're boring God with your small dreams? Let's commit to this idea of being totally uneffing realistic all the time, and let's see where it gets us. Well, let me tell you, being unrealistic is really fun. Because once I had that as my mindset and I hit go, I started to do the most incredible thing. Now, some of you guys are here, and you're working for traditional organizations, or you're working for startups, and you're starting to really excel. And that's where I found myself. I'm at NASA, I'm loving my job, I'm talking to students, I'm having a great time. And for the first 4 years, I was promoted every single year, and I loved it because I was getting the external validation that I was seeking in Upgrade 2. And then when I got to the 5th year, does anybody know what happened? In that 5th year, I had a conversation with my supervisor, and my supervisor hinted that I might have to stay in the same job for another 10 years. Because I was excelling at a rate that was faster than what they thought. And this is when I got to the point and I said, okay, if I was going to apply the same mindset, the one I told you about being unrealistic, what was it that I would do? And I said, okay, well, if you can go and you can work for this elite organization, why can't you build your own? Why is it that you were sitting here and you were thinking that you're going to wait for someone else to validate you more, for someone else to choose you, to give you the permission to be great? Why don't you just go and build the thing that people say that you cannot do? Now, I didn't just wake up and quit my job. I would have loved to, but being from the startup world, funding, investment, those things can take time and be a little bit challenging. But what I did do was I woke up a little bit earlier, and I stayed up a little bit later, and I started plotting my escape trajectory. I started thinking about, if I were to leave, how was it that I was going to do it? And I started talking to a lot of business owners, some who were established and some who were startup. And the number one thing that I found that was common among all of these people was that most of them knew what they wanted to do, but they did not know how they were going to do it. And this was a light bulb for me, because I said, you know what, Aisha? You want to build a world-class organization. You don't know how you're going to do it. All you need to do is commit the time between where you are now and where it is that you want to be. And so I left my job, which was not an exciting thing for my mom, right? Shout out to all the entrepreneurs and people that are out there. I left my job and my mom was like, I am not okay with this. You are now couch surfing, I am uncomfortable, but it didn't matter, because I truly believe that you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And you can't tell people what your dreams are, you have to show them. And so in this time, I have left and I have said, why am I still seeking permission? Why have I accumulated all of these things? And I feel like I've made it, but really, I haven't. Because I'm not allowing myself to fully pursue the dreams and the potential and the passion I have until I double down on being unrealistic. Well, that dream, that business that I was told that I couldn't create because I didn't have a business degree, because I didn't have investors, because I didn't even have employees, became something that today I've run for 12 years. Brick by brick, conversation by conversation, I built what people said that I couldn't do it solely because I thought that it should exist. Now, I would love to tell you that I stopped here, but I didn't, because even though you may have accomplished a lot in life, I would like to invite you to still think about what limiting beliefs you have. I was running a services company that was doing engineering consulting, and I was running into conversations with people who had started startups, and they were sort of like, well, you did this, but you can't do that. And I said, Aisha, why is it that you don't try to start a venture-backed company? Why don't you try to raise funding? And I want to talk to the ladies in the room when I say this. I did not think that I could do it because the statistics were absolutely effing terrible. Right? It was like 1% of black women do this and 2% of women do that. And I once again went back to the drawing board and I said, well, that to me sounds like a challenge. Because if 1% or 2% do it, that means that there's a chance, and that means that I can do it. And what I did was I studied the model. And what I noticed was a lot of people were taking venture capital backing from people who did not look like them. I mean, it's sort of like it's not avoidable, right? It's just who the investors are. But there was another route where I could take friendly and patient capital, and so I sought family office investment. And while it took a little bit longer, I was able to bring in $1.5 million in a seed round from a family office. And then I went to all the VCs who would not invest in me, and I said, do you want to play? I essentially de-risked the round. And when this happened, it was another nod in the direction that being unrealistic will take you everywhere you want to go. And as I started to reflect on this, I said, okay, so we've got NASA, we've got a business, we've got venture capital. Because I believe in cracking the door for other people to walk through. What else can you do in order to not only be even more realistic, but to examine the things that you think you're not capable of? Well, the last thing for me was I did not think that I could do the thing that I originally dreamed of, the thing that we see going on right now around the world, which is space. While I had worked at NASA, while I had the opportunity to support astronauts, I still, having done these things, having challenged myself to be unrealistic, did not think for whatever reason that I could actually go. This conversation was a wild one internally, because I sat back and I said, you know what, Aisha, you have always lived your life by your own rules. And if you stop here, if you stop building the thing that you are uniquely suited to build, then what happens? Is someone else going to build that thing? No, they're not. So, what could I take from my entrepreneurial journey and apply to the position that I was in? What I decided to do, and have become the first Black woman on the planet to do, was to take what I learned by being an unrealistic startup founder and raise the money for my seed. And so I got here by doing exactly what all of you are doing at this conference. I decided to take this wild idea of let me go out and let me raise money and make a business case for why I should go to space. And then I said, well, you know what? You've built the engineering company, you've built the education company, now let's go and build a space company. Because if I can build a space company, so can you. And in building this, I said, what are the things that I need to bring to the table so that people know that what I did was not a PR stunt, it was more than a headline, it was something that was calculated, it was something that was deliberate. And what I decided to do was science. And not just any old, hey, we're gonna fly an experiment, but it was this idea of if I own the seat, if I build the path, I can take the organizations and the small businesses that I select along the way with me. And so I chose an experiment where we genetically sequenced plants in microgravity. I chose an astrobotany lab that had previously not been recognized the way that they should on the world stage. I chose a small business that built this apparatus that I could flight qualify in space. And I chose to dedicate my mission to gathering data about my physiological response and committing it to an AI algorithm so people could learn from it in the future. And all of this was because I decided from day one that I was going to be unrealistic and I was going to raise the money to go to space for the benefit of Earth. And so I ask you, what is it that you would do if you truly knew that you could not fail? If you knew that what you were going to create was uniquely yours and it could some way make the world better? Because had I, at any point in time, decided that I was going to listen to the people that told me that it was impossible, none of this would have become probable. As we close out the session, I want to remind you, all the big ideas, all the crazy things that you see, they were once someone's dream. And when they created those things, oftentimes society was behind. They didn't really embrace the wild, creative ideas that you have, that you've seen, until after, when it became more cool. And so I want you to be encouraged. I want you to understand that everything that I've done before anybody thought that I should do it. And I look forward to what it is that you're going to create, because you have to be crazy enough to dream it and stubborn enough to build it. Thank you.